Hey, it's Jesse Clegg, and you're listening to The Gareth Nelson Show.
Okay, we are joined by the fantastic Jesse Clegg on The Gareth Nelson Show today. Jesse, how are you doing?
I'm good, and you, man?
Not too bad, thank you. All right, so how did you get started into music?
Well, I grew up in a very musical family, and so I was exposed to music from a very young age, and I kind of grew up in and around live music and in recording studios, and it was a very stimulating experience, and I kind of saw the magic of music, the ability of music to connect people and to convey ideas in a unique way. And I also saw the hardships, the discipline and the long-term challenge of being a songwriter and being an artist. So I think when I really started digging my heels into music, when I started to learn how to play guitar and started to experiment with writing my own music and kind of finding my own voice and my own sort of means of expression, and that was when I really sort of fell in love with being a songwriter.
And what is it like having a famous musician as a father? I mean, obviously Johnny Clegg is and such a big South African legend as well. Is it great or was it tough?
I think for me it's been a challenge in one aspect, and it's been an absolute blessing in another. On the one side, I have huge respect for my dad. We're very close. He's like my best friend, and I can share ideas with him. I can bounce. He's like a soundboard for me. He's had so much experience in the industry, and it's very. I'm very lucky to have, that presence in my life. On the other hand, I want to be my own artist. I don't want to be seen as derivative of any other artist, whether it's my dad or anyone. And I think what's been helpful to me is that we have very different musical styles. So I think that it's difficult for people to make sort of direct comparisons to our music because we kind of exist in two different worlds. But I think it was more of a challenge when I first started, because people kind of expected me to do something along his lines, and I think there was a bit of a surprise when I did something so different. But now, I'm 3 albums in. I think people have kind of accepted that I'm doing my own thing.
Yeah, and I suppose just carrying the name, the Clegg as well. Obviously, people did have that expectation, but as you said, you've broken away and done your own style.
Yeah, and I've never wanted to. I've never, used my name or used my association in any way to get to this point. I literally, the first time I ever performed on stage with my father was last year for his final tour. So I've never. It's something that we've never done before, and it was really special when we did do it.
And that's what I actually wanted to ask you. I mean, some career highlights for you. Obviously, that's been one of them. But other things that have stood out for you?
I mean, there's lots of amazing moments. I mean, I think playing at Isle of Wight Festival in the UK was fantastic. Playing at Radio City Music Hall in New York. I mean, I've played almost every festival in South Africa, which is always a good time. I think my most recent sort of highlight was when this new song that I did with Kent Phonic, I'll Follow You, was one of the most played songs in South Africa last year, which was a wonderful kind of surprise, because it was something so different for what I usually do. And yeah, there's lots of highs and there's also lots of lows, so it kind of balances out.
It did. That's the other side of my question, actually, is what is your regrets in your career so far? What would you do differently?
I don't know. It's very difficult to try and imagine how you would change things, because music and art is so it's very personal, and you write from a perspective that you're in at that time. And you do things that feel true and feel right to you in that moment. And so, there's songs that I would have changed, or there's things that I would have done a different production or rearranged or whatever. But in the moment, it felt like that's what I had to do. And that instinct, it's very important that you listen to that instinct as a creative person. You have to stay true to that sort of voice that guides you in your art. So I think that although there are lots of things I'd love to change, I know that the reasons that I was doing those things were sincere.
Yes.
So it's hard to regret them.
You can't change it now anyway.
Hey?
Yeah, I said you can't change it now anyway.
You can't change it, so it's useless regretting it.
Indeed. And what inspires you to write as a songwriter? I mean, was it like a conscious decision to be in a different genre from your father? Or was it just something that's what you were comfortable in?
Yeah, it's just how it came out. Just that's just how that's where I found my musical kind of playground.
Yes.
It wasn't conscious or anything. It was just that's what made sense to me.
Yes. And what would your advice be to younger musicians coming up now? Would you advise people to get into the music industry, or would you say to them, look, it's really not worth it?
I mean, look, I'm in the music industry, so I would say that it is worth it if you are passionate about music and you enjoy music in and of itself. I think that a lot of people kind of want to do music for the wrong reasons, and that actually makes it harder for them in a lot of ways, because if you love music and you love writing or you love performing and stuff like that, then you can overcome incredible challenges because your love of it has nothing to do with the outside world. It's just you and your music. That relationship with your own work is self-fulfilling. It exists in and of itself.
Yes.
So regardless of whether it's successful or whether you're famous and rich and wealthy, whatever it is, that thing doesn't change.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful thing. And so I think that if there's young artists out there who have a passion for music and enjoy it, I would say go for it, man. There's nothing in your way, because that kind of engagement with music is unstoppable.
Yes. And what do you think of the current state of South African music as it sits?
I mean, I think it's improving. I think that the industry is expanding. I think there's more artists coming out. There's more festivals happening. I think broadly the South African economy is in a bit of a tough spot. So you always see entertainment having a tough time first. Whenever there's like an economic problem, the first thing people don't spend on is entertainment.
Yes, of course.
But I think that overall I think that we are appreciating our artists more. There's more interest. We're seeing more local artists expanding overseas. And I think that that's all really good. I think that South Africa's starting to find its own music culture and its own sort of interaction with its artists, and that's really exciting. That's a really good thing.
And the state of world music, do you think there's a shift away, say, from like rock, guitar-based music to more sort of electronic music? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I hardly played guitar on my last album at all, and I'm a guitarist. Yes. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I think it's just different. For me, I find those changes exciting because it's a different bag of tools to write songs with. So for me, it's like a creative challenge. So I'm neither here nor there about that. I know that music changes. I mean, in the 80s, synth pop became huge, and then guitar rock kind of fell away, and then it came back. And guitar is never going to be an instrument that disappears from music altogether. It's just we're in a place right now where music is focused on other instruments, and that's fine. That's awesome.
And do you think there's like an oversaturation of musicians coming up now with regards to, because of anybody can sort of make a song on their computer at home now? Do you think it's taken away a bit of the art of it? Or?
Yeah, it's definitely the market is completely oversaturated. I mean, I think not even 5 years ago to make an album was a very costly business. So you had to really, you had to craft your songs, you had to play them live, you had to experience the music and really choose very carefully what you were going to record and what you could afford and who you could do it with, and your time in studio was limited, so you had to really nail it. Now it's kind of like the floodgates are open. which in a way is a good thing. It's kind of like democratizing music, so it's not just for people who can afford it. The con of that is that there's so much music now. I think consumers are like a little bit overwhelmed.
Yes.
You know, it's actually harder to find new music because there's so much.
Yes.
But I don't know. It's weird. Like I find myself having access to a lot of music that I would never have listened to, and kind of stumbling across it accidentally, and that's always awesome. You know, I love finding music that I didn't know about. So I don't know. I think it's made I think it's harder for new artists to break now than ever before. But I also think, ironically, it's also easier for new artists to get their music out there.
Yeah, it's good and bad
So
almost.
it's a bizarre irony.
Yes. And when you look back on your career one day, when you retire and you've had enough, what would you like your legacy to be?
Geez, I don't know, man. I don't even think about that. I hope I can look back and there's a great body of music that I'm proud of, you know.
And you left your mark, as it were.
Yeah.
And what's the future hold for Jesse Clegg?
Probably going to be heading off to LA to produce some new music.
Oh, cool.
And working on lots of new demos for a new album at some point.
Oh,
so,
exciting.
yeah, it's been nice and busy.
Busy tonight. Well, Jesse, thanks so much for taking the time to chat to me today. It's been an absolute privilege chatting to you, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you, man. Likewise.